there was a naturalization ceremony scheduled for today that was canceled. And the one civilian victim was an immigrant that had a hearing today for their immigration status. So that's quite unfortunate and quite ironic at the same time.
So we've been telling you like a broken record at this point that as the midterms draw closer, you're going to see leftists revive their political campaign strategy of domestic terrorism, especially against ICE. And that is exactly what we have seen in the past week, where a couple of days ago, we had gunshots fired through the windows of a Phoenix ICE facility. Now, just today, as you may have heard, apparently some type of attempted terrorist attack was committed at the federal building in New York City. This guy lit a fire. He was armed with axes, hammers, machetes, knives, a pellet gun apparently that he tried to fire off. And it does not appear at this time that he managed to really do that much damage, because luckily he was not that competent of a terrorist. But what we are generally watching is, yes, that rise in violence once again. Do you think simply because this went dark for a couple months it was going away? No, these people were literally saving it for the midterms. And I think these recent trends, and let's not forget, by the way, the attempted car rammings that caused the controversy because ICE had to defend themselves a couple of weeks back, yet another reminder that ICE is not the bad guy in this story, folks, and simply never has been. Because we, of course, have to understand, first of all, that before you sit there and scrutinize their actions of, oh, why they have to use force, or I don't agree with the way they're doing things. Okay, first of all, please do take in the fact that a major part of their job literally involves rounding up violent, dangerous criminals, MS-13, Trenda Aragua, literal cartel members, the very people that Democrats are so often hell-bent on protecting, because, of course, we know they are a party that is owned by the cartels and illegal alien sex predators and all this different crazy stuff that they sit there and protest. But simultaneously, when we're talking about these standoffs between ICE and leftists, we've pointed out every single time it's actually the leftists who are violent, and in many cases, they're in a sense staging false flags. Like, this is actually a false flagging thing. And that's not to go out and say that, oh, none of that stuff happened or it's some type of fake incident, but rather that, as we so often point out, this type of stuff is staged in a sense, which is to say, you know, you create this incident where you intentionally go, act violent, threaten the lives of ICE agents, try to run them over with cars, start a fight with them while you're armed and expect nothing bad to happen, all this different stuff, right? Or, oh, why are they tear gassing after we started a riot? Look, guys, they're using force against us. Is this whole leftist protest strategy of literally they commit the violence. They start the fight when ICE is forced to respond and defend themselves. Then ICE is going to be the bad guys. Of course, in response to this, you're watching literal terrorist attacks take place outside of ICE facilities. Going to make a wild prediction. Not a single Democrat politician is going to acknowledge this incident, much less condemn it. And beyond that, of course, if there has to be a necessary crackdown against leftist terrorist networks in this country, the violent revolutionary communists, as we often call them, which there does need to be, who's going to sit there and play victim over it? Who's going to claim the fascist Trump administration is cracking down on us for no reason? That is, of course, the leftists. If we understand that their ideology is sort of this perpetual victimhood, do also understand that's not just talking about DEI policies. It also involves the way they literally protest and commit violence. It's the same exact thing. Cry out in pain as they strike you. Oh, let's be violent. Let's support terrorism. Let's celebrate terrorism. Let's do all this and that. But if government has to do a basic duty like, hey, stop terrorism, then, oh, it's fascism, it's the Gestapo. These people are such disgusting liars. But again, just remember, ICE is not the bad guy in this story, never has been, and we do have to call out every single time the left-wing terrorists that are trying to stage propaganda moments that these people are always, melting down about. So let's talk about the current events that have unfolded in the past couple of days, guys, as it pertains to leftist terrorism. First, though, do us a favor. If you enjoy our content, make sure you hit that like button down below. Subscribe to the channel if you are new. That is the best way to support our work, and it also ensures that you can stay up to date with all of the latest news and coverage. And again, just a reminder, now the second incident of an attempted terrorist attack outside of an ICE building just in the past week. Again, not very reported that much last week, but we also had an attempted shooting over in Phoenix. So now what we saw today is apparently this fire attack on 26 Federal Plaza in New York City, which is housing ICE's field office. And you could see today, this guy basically like lit a fire outside, right? And apparently there was a lot more to it. So the FBI is now confirming that the anti-ICE terrorist who did all this was a guy by the name of Andrew Arabaka, which by my research is a surname of Iberian origin, but I'm not sure on that, poured gasoline at the employee entrance in a Federal Plaza and then ignited it with a lighter and incendiary device. But of course, they might just say that's a peaceful protest, right? Because if you remember back to many years of now leftist violence and rioting and terrorism, by definition, apparently lighting everything around you on fire is not considered violent according to these people, right? That's peaceful protest. So, okay, apparently that aspect of it we could write off as mostly peaceful protest, again, using, their standards here. But then secondly, we also know that Arabaka had 2 axes, a hammer, a machete, 3 knives, and a pellet gun, which he fired about 5 to 7 pellets from.
Where he ignited gasoline. He poured gasoline onto the ground and ignited it with a lighter and an incendiary device. That device was a firework, a large firework in a canister. That proceeded to catch on fire, pretty big flame as you've seen on the internet. He then pulled out an airsoft rifle and fired 5 to 7 pellets, if you will, in the direction of 26 Federal Plaza. There were injuries in this. 3 people were injured, minor injuries, 1 civilian and 2 government employees. Mr. Arabaka came armed with bad intentions. I will say that 26 Federal Plaza has long been a target of extremists, of terrorists, and today the extremism was brought here. The building was attacked. Mr. Arabaka was looking to injure people and harm people.
Yeah, so certainly a very leftist coded thing to do, complain about the killing of innocent civilians and then injure innocent civilians in your own terrorist attack. But what's insane to find out, and even more ironic about this, is that apparently one of the people who was injured, the civilian here, was actually an immigrant who was on his way to an immigration hearing, right? So, the brilliance of these leftists, let's target the people we're supposedly trying to protect. You know how it goes.
He did say he was targeting the building, and he was okay if he hurt or killed people going in and out of the building, whether they were federal employees or civilians.
Yeah, so a couple of interesting details there. They did reveal that this guy was a former veteran during the War on Terror years, which you do see cases of that very occasionally, right? Where some soldier who was there gets radicalized and basically becomes a spiritual Palestinian. So, is it one of those things where it's like, radicalized by Palestine, whatever? Maybe that's a possibility, right? Basically became a Muslim. On the flip side, I could also point out that, you have a kind of Spanish origin name. Maybe he's just against ICE, whatever. But it does seem pretty undeniable, right? He didn't randomly attack some building because he just wanted to commit a random act of violence. It does appear this was extremely deliberate and intentional. It looks like he had some type of political message written on the little helmet he was wearing when he came in. Yeah, clearly we know exactly what this was. Let's not play dumb about it, folks. Now, that said, if you're curious as to what the response here was from Zoran Mamdani, it goes exactly as I expected. I told you, not a single Democrat's going to offer an actual condemnation of this, and to whatever details like the mayor of New York City has to give, they're going to be incredibly vague. And by the way, this is what Democrat politicians do every single time. They might go out there to save face and say, we condemn violence or we believe in public safety or something, But you notice they will never call out left-wing political violence by name. Zoran here doesn't even acknowledge that the federal building belonged to ICE, right? So they can play this little plausible deniability nonsense of, oh, well, I said that we're glad that the suspect is in custody. Okay, who's the suspect? What was the attack about? Will you explicitly say that left-wing political terrorism is wrong? They'll say no. Look, we condemn violence. You know, we were not violent people. And as we explained before, this is sort of the stochastic terrorism game that they play to perpetuate more of their supporters to engage in political violence while being able to wash their hands clean and say, oh, it wasn't us that encouraged the political violence. No, you just pushed everybody's buttons intentionally to lead them to that point. You encouraged it, but because you didn't explicitly say it, okay, then it's not like, oh, I didn't legally incite violence. Okay, fine, fair enough. But then after even the violence ensues, they'll basically do everything they can to protect the violent terrorists, which tells you a lot about how they actually feel about said violent terrorists. So something important to understand about the relationship, as we've pointed out many times, between the radical, violent leftists, Antifa and other such types of people, and the Tyler Robinsons of the world, and the Democrat Party. This is how the whole game goes. You may remember after the assassination of Charlie Kirk, what did Democrats say? What was their big little thing? Oh, we're against violence. Okay, yeah. Okay, you know, easy to say. Okay, are you against left-wing political violence, though? Are you going to condemn the radicalized, the violent radicalization of your own voters and supporters? No, they won't even say that, right? In fact, if you remember initially, before a certain Candace Owens started to take over the theory, initially the big conspiracy around the Charlie Kirk assassin was that, oh, actually he was right-wing, which was completely ridiculous. Oh yeah, a MAGA Trump supporter just went and shot like Trump's top guy, basically, in a sense, right? Yeah, that makes so much sense. But that's what they, you know, always notice they do this. They always like deflect the responsibility. So every single time, you remember with the Trump assassination attempt that took place a couple months ago, they tried to say it was staged. They also, some of them were going to try to say that, oh, that guy was also right wing or something like that. Whenever Antifa commits violence and we ask, do you condemn Antifa violence? They say, well, Antifa's just an idea. It doesn't exist. Apparently a bunch of ideas are starting fires in downtown Portland every weekend, you know, but these very stupid, ridiculous games every single time, but it's all a roundabout kind of method to do what? Justify and encourage more political violence. That's the entire point. I mean, obviously you have plenty of people just go on social media. You'll see them celebrating the terrorist. That's definitely a thing. Yeah. I mean, as we tried to say, it is I don't know if it's a majority, but it's a very sizable portion of the leftist base that supports violence against people like us, which should be a top concern, you know? As much as, by the way, a certain crowd on the right wing wants to apparently downplay that leftists are violent or try to say that's not true. No, it is true. And no, I seriously doubt it was an Israeli agent who tried to firebomb basically an ICE facility. You know, like, are we going to do that? Or are we just going to admit actually leftists are violent? And actually the way the Democrat Party responds to acts of violence 100% tells you that the Democrat Party is covertly trying to support the violence. Like, please understand this and comprehend this and digest this deeply. Okay. So anyways, what was the response, though? I'm getting sidetracked of Zoran Mamdani here. He says, what occurred outside 26 Federal Plaza this morning was deeply disturbing. It's like, gee, I wonder what is at 26 Federal Plaza, right? Just some random office building. No, genius, it's the ICE office, right? But he won't say that. This is exactly my point. He won't even acknowledge that it was an act of violence against ICE or the Trump administration. It's just 26 Federal Plaza. Huh, what could that possibly be? Nobody knows. I'm relieved no one is seriously injured and that a suspect is in custody. Who is the suspect? Are you going to acknowledge when the details of the suspect come out? Nope. My team is in touch with NYPD and we will support the federal investigation. Our administration will continue to ensure that every New Yorker is safe in their city and holds accountable any who threaten that. So notice the intentional ambiguity. That is the whole point. The whole point is so that he doesn't have to actually condemn violence on his own side. So again, to the people on the right wing who keep trying to downplay or deny that the left is literally violent, they support political violence on an institutional level, I demand all of you, okay, how many times does it have to happen? How many times do leftists have to like say directly in your face? Yeah, we have a disproportionately high rate of political terrorism. And by the way, our people en masse will literally just like celebrate it if they manage to kill you or something like that before you acknowledge, oh, that's a real thing, right? But anyways, something to think about.
More than 80% of radical violence is now driven by far left and anarchist actors. These are not abstract statistics. Americans have seen what those numbers mean. An all-out assault on our immigration officers, sniper attacks, explosives, armed ambushes, a transgender shooter opening fire on Catholic elementary school students as they pray, his gun marked with slogans like, "Where is your God now?" A healthcare executive executed in cold blood in the streets. Multiple assassination attempts on a sitting president, and the murder of the greatest conservative activist of a generation.
Yep, exactly. And as we have seen, you can fully expect that as the election draws closer and these people grow increasingly desperate for whatever reason of the day it is, but as you score wins against them politically and they're not quite defeated, but they're starting to be backed into a corner, they're lashing out. And that's exactly what you're seeing. And kind of these people just resorting to exactly who they are, which is, you know, they put on the face of whatever, right? We're just peace-loving hippies, empathy, whatever nonsense crap they throw out. But at the end of the day, what are they really? Kind of these violent, savage, anti-civilizational, anti-social lunatics, okay? Like genuinely sick people, which really have been the nature of leftists throughout all of human history. That's why, you know, communist revolutions based on equality often just end up with like masses of the resentful, mass murdering anything reflecting beauty or even normalcy. You know, that's the actual reality of communism. People always try to say, oh, well, define communism. You know, it's when workers own the means of production. Like, it actually has very little to do with that in reality. Again, it's just like resentful, violent freaks killing off normal people. Like, that is actually what communism is fundamentally at its core about. That's what it is. But, you know, still, nonetheless, this is something they are doing. As much as we want to sit there and say that, oh, well, violence only makes you look bad. Violence only, you know, strengthens our cause if you're attacking us. I mean, sometimes there's truth in that, but let's be honest at the same time. You know, part of the reason the leftists do this is because it is unfortunately effective, at least for them, right? It's not to say if the roles were reversed, it would be effective because we operate sort of on two different playing fields and a biased system. But, you know, for example, you look at the famous assassination of Charlie Kirk, which many conservatives as a defense mechanism are trying to say was not perpetuated by leftists. But still, nonetheless, again, your stupid conspiracies are not going to change the reality of like what's happening to us. And I'm very sick of right-wingers trying to get the rest of us killed. But still, nonetheless, okay. So you look at what happened there. Initially, we did go out and say that, oh, you know, you just made the right wing 10 times stronger. We're all Charlie Kirk now or something. But in reality, it doesn't actually work that way, as you've seen. Actually, the right wing has kind of spiraled ever since then. Why? Because they took out one of our top leaders, right? One of our top coalition builders keeping it all together. What happens after that? Power vacuums, struggles, stupid people fighting each other. That's the reality of what these people do, right? And then you even look at, likewise, other types of left-wing violence. Let's talk about the anti-ICE stuff. So sure, what are they doing in reality? Being violent, rioting, causing all the damage. But of course, it doesn't work that way in the media. These people know exactly what they're doing. According to the media, ICE is just tear gassing peaceful protesters, or ICE just shot 2 people in Minneapolis for absolutely no reason. Of course, we have aggressively tried to push back on that, but let's also be honest about the political effect that it had. Doesn't matter if Renee Good or Alex Preddy entirely incited those situations with their own stupid decisions. What did the country see and hear? Oh, ICE is like being mean or something. And then, by the way, how much political capital did we lose over it? Because let's be honest, as much as you and I likely understand the truth about those situations, yeah, a lot of the country did genuinely sour on immigration enforcement because of that. Like, that was a real undeniable thing. And so, but what happened there, right? That's the thing. This is actually should be the most sobering reality of it all. The left does not hurt politically from committing violence, right? Think about that. It actually helps them politically. It might momentarily rile us up. Oh, I can't believe they did that. But what happens after the fact? In the end, it's actually an effective strategy from them, right? Which should make you perhaps the most concerned of it all, should emphasize the importance of never giving these people power, ensuring full victory politically over these people, cracking down aggressively on networks of violent leftists, of which there was no negotiating with or debating with in a civil democratic society or something like that, right? But you know, probably, let's be honest, I don't know, not gonna happen or whatever. And then this is what we're stuck with. So, you know, just something to remember as right wingers before we you know, try to say that like left wing violence is not real or something. A crazy theory to be pushing after seeing how these people act. But when you really think about it, I mean, we've been over this before. Who started the Charlie Kirk wasn't killed by a violent leftist thing? Leftists did, right? I mean, the whole Israel theory originated from Jackson Hinkle, who's the chairman of the American Communist Party, Max Blumenthal, another like American Marxist figure, and people like, they literally started the Israel killed Charlie theory, right? And then who's picking that up? The literal thing started by communists. Who's picking that up a couple weeks later? But then people get mad when I say, you're literally falling for a communist psyop. Like, you understand that, right? And do we also fully understand why leftists might want to start theories among the right wing that would de-escalate the heat that leftists otherwise would be facing as a result of people en masse knowing that a leftist killed Charlie Kirk, right? That literally did happen. And then if that was sort of the far left theory, what was the center left or whatever theory, the liberal theory? What did they all say? He was right wing. Remember that? He was MAGA. Always what these people do. Literally, they go commit violence and then try to downplay it and pin it on us. You know, it's like a very sick, very frustrating thing that happens. And, you know, I just wish people would get serious about politics and understand the stakes, because you see what these people are doing, right? Like they will literally go round us up, take us to like, metaphorically speaking, right? They're gonna go literally round us up, take us to gulags, and then write in the history books that we're the ones who did it, right? Like it wasn't even them, because that's how these people act. That's literally what these people do. Go commit violence and then say it wasn't them. It's just so insane. But, you know, anyways, there you have it, guys. That said, let me know your thoughts on this in the comment section down below. Be sure to leave a like on this video, subscribe to the channel if you are new. And until next time, God bless and peace.